guest on the show today, Alicja Heyda. So Alicja, tell me if I'm saying that right, is joining us from Poland. She works with Breathwork. She was a big success on our breath day that we did for the Embodiment Conference. Probably got the best feedback of anyone, despite there being some really famous names there. Also, I just like her vibe. It's very practical. You know, she works with people with cancer and other kind of serious illnesses. So she's on the front lines, as it were, and just seems to have a fun sense of humor, very pragmatic. So super happy for you to join us today. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for such a nice introduction.
And
I have to be practical. I don't work with hippies in general.
We're not going to do fluffy hippie stuff with you today. This is
no fluffy unicorns today.
Some Slavic directness. You know, I've got a soft spot for Poland. I dated my wife in Krakow. She speaks Polish, and I've been best man at a Polish wedding. I've been about 10 times to Poland. So I think you're maybe just our second or third Polish guest. So welcome.
Wow.
Okay, let's hear a bit about your life story. How did you get interested in breathwork?
So I was a really strange science-focused kid who did not fit in anywhere. So after I have read all the books I could find, also all these for adults, and encyclopedia and everything, I realized that the only way to get me out of my loneliness and being cut off from anybody and anyone is to deal with my body. And I wanted to find something that will release my attention and my feeling of alienation. I was 14 at that time. And 1 year later, I bought on the black market the first edition of Sandra Ray book on rebirthing and loving relationships, and Alexander Lowen on spirituality of the body. And it was this moment of, aha, this is the thing I'm going to do all my life. So that's how it started.
Now, I would never ask a Polish lady her age, but I'm guessing the Iron Curtain was still sort of up at this point. You were you said the black market. Was this in communist time or was this post-communist?
Yes, of course.
No. Okay. So that's interesting. So it wasn't sort of really widely available, I guess, this work at that time there.
Small amounts of independent press was available, but many nice books on psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is about the freedom of the mind, so it was not regarded as a good book to sell. So there is a famous editor in Poland. He's also a psychotherapist who was printing psychotherapy books on the black market on a stolen paper. Yes, it was a Hungry Ghost publishing house.
Wow, great. What a great name as well. I'd love to be published on stolen paper. The Irish rogue in me likes the idea of being published on stolen paper.
Yeah. So that was the end of communism, yes? And the book of Alexander Lowen was released legally in 1991, so 2 years later.
Right. So you're this sort of strange geek, and you've discovered this underground embodied therapy, body work.
Yes. I kept on buying everything from esoterics, astrology, everything that could give me any glimpse into the human mind. So when I found bodywork, I realized this is it.
Okay.
No mental constructions, philosophies will help me, mathematics will not help me, physics, anything. So I was in a contact with certain esoteric groups at that time, and they told me that there is a secret breathwork yoga center in the middle of nowhere in Poland.
Okay.
So my mother packed me up because I was underage at that time, and she drove me up there, and later she also became interested. But it was nice. It was a connection of process-oriented psychology with rebirthing breathwork. It was 1993, so it was 2 years later. Until that time, I did all the courses I could have, like Silva method, everything I could get. Yeah, because normal psychotherapy was available at psychiatric ward, there were several Gestalt schools, but not for teenagers.
So you're this is very young as a teenager interested in this stuff. Like I was 18 before I got interested in anything like that. 16, I guess, I first saw yoga. So you're pretty young. Your mum's driving you to the secret breathwork center. I rather like the idea of having a secret breathwork center. That would be good marketing now. You just say that now. And how did you find your career? What was the sort of career path here?
Okay, I realized that I am a weirdo or a nerd, as you could say. Or maybe I'm not totally neurotypical. So I can't accept saying just breathe love and everything will be all right.
Yeah.
Forgive everyone and you will be healthy. Hug a lot of people and you will get used to it. Oh, that was the worst part in rebirthing breathwork.
Too much hugging for you, yeah?
Too much hug. I can't think about it. I can't even think about it. Now I'm better with hugging. But at that time it was difficult. So I have met a lot of new age ideology of inner child.
Yeah.
Which drove me very angry, because basically I'm getting very angry when I feel threatened or manipulated. So I needed science, and I realized that breathwork will soon be over if there will be no wider mindset. So I joined Jagiellonian University. It was quite difficult to get in, 17 people per one place. And they gave us intelligence tests to get in. So definitely I'm not stupid. And later on, academic psychology, it is academic psychology, so it's pretty boring. But psychotherapy courses were just starting in Krakow. So students were invited. Now, today, students cannot start full psychotherapy course, but at that time it was possible. So I started somatoanalysis from Strasbourg. We were going to Strasbourg for 2 weeks every year, and teachers were coming to Krakow. And I started process-oriented psychology by Arnold Mindell, because this approach helped me a lot to be non-judgmental, non-dogmatic, to feel the body without feeling that something must be felt in a certain way to be right. Yeah,
right,
really nice free movement, authentic movement. So that was my way. And later on, I realized that psychology is limited. And at that time, at 24, I started working as an oncology clinic in Gliwice. This
cancer
is
patients,
cancer patients. This is a large center now. And at that time, it was the same. We have about 600 beds. So imagine. It's
a lot of people.
A lot of people. And I was the only psychotherapist. Young psychotherapist who has just got back from her friend's training. So I slowly introduced bodywork, a couple of minutes here, a couple of minutes there. It was very strange for everyone. I showed everyone my breathwork research. It was my master thesis.
Okay.
Breathwork research. Yeah, I realized I need medical biology to understand what is going on. Why certain people who should be dead are not dead and they are healing, how it is possible after deep cathartic processes. I have certain cases during all these years. I studied molecular biology on my own and everything to understand, yeah. And I met Molecules of Emotion book by Candace Pert, and she was my hero scientist. Yes, she was a rebel. Oh, I really loved every word she wrote. And she inspired me to continue with breathwork research. So that's how I started my attempt to measure how circular breathing connected with non-judgmental awareness may help in patients' immunity and mood and so on. So this is why I'm always asking questions. So I'm very curious. I want to know everything I could, yes. The real science starts where the Google ends. So I really were almost at the end of the Google during all these years.
Okay, well, let's jump right in there then. Based on the research that you've seen and done, what good does breath work do?
You mean breath work?
What works? What's effective? What is it proven to show? What is it not proven to show? What is your guess but isn't proven? Like, you've surveyed this field, so let's get this information out there.
Right. I believe that cancer patients are not very strong, and they are breathing in a very bad, ineffective way in general. And they are so weak and sensitive, but we cannot just treat them with a, huge breathwork session, holotropic, hardcore hallucinations.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot do too much trembling, any kind of spontaneous bioenergetic trembling. We can't do this. We will never know if someone has metastasis to the bones, or the tumor is on a large vessel. Imagine what happens.
Right, you start shaking, and all of a sudden the blood vessel bursts, and the heart stops, and they die. Right?
Or would you like to see a blood on the ceiling? So this is a very stupid idea. So all these pushy ideas that a certain intervention must look in a dogmatic white and black way, it's not working at the hospital.
Right, and that was the flavor of a lot of the early breath work, wasn't it? That people have heard maybe of holotropic or rebreathing. Not everyone has heard of those now, particularly the younger generation coming in. So, these were quite intense, long sessions, a lot of huffing and puffing generally.
19 minutes, breathing to your tetany. I quite enjoyed it because as a nerd, I didn't feel much, so it was attractive, but not for a cancer patient. So I was very careful. My body told me to be careful, When you are 24 years old, you don't know anything, despite intellectual knowledge or insight from your own therapy. So slowly I introduced breathwork, or just mindfulness, or a bit of neo-Reichian bodywork, wherever I could. I had large groups of authentic movement and trance dance with cancer patients. It was lovely. Okay. But I asked them just to close their eyes, not to, put anything here, because this is the difference. Normal neurotic population will benefit from, having their eyes covered, dancing very long, and the cancer patients like to be together. So they were dancing together with open eyes, but it was still authentic movement. So all my experiments, and I am this kind of person that every day without an experiment is a lost day, really. So every day I was asked to see a lot of people in totally difficult situations. So I tried. Everything might happen. Patient, for example, the patient did not want to quit respirator because of fear, or I am called to radiotherapy ambulatory because the patient has a very strong claustrophobia, and I have 15 minutes. So we start. Usually, I have a nice little protocol to teach people circular, coherent breathing to ease the heart, to teach them about the tingling is not dangerous, and it usually helps. Yeah. If it's very bad trauma, people usually fall into trance when I'm teaching them how to breathe. The body chooses whether it is a trance or it is a meditation. It is not my choice. And as a therapist,
sorry to jump in. Could you just define coherent and circular breathing? I know what they are, but listeners might well.
Let's define. Okay. Circular breathing might be fast breathing. Medium speed breathing of about 10-12 breaths might be a very slow type of breathing, and different speed of breathing regulates different part of our nervous system, of course, and it regulates the work of our heart and our and the blood tension. So normally coherent breathing, this is the most effective breathing from the heart's perspective. So it is 6 breaths per minute, and it's being done in a different ways. I am doing in a way that will not affect, it will not put a pressure on the heart, because I don't know, the patient is like a surprise, yes? We still don't know what's in the heart. So I never push on exhalation, and I ask them to breathe like a nice big mammal. So nice deep breath, starting from the belly, of course, up to the lungs, and normal exhalation like a knees, like a feeling of being released without pushing or stopping, or cutting this exhale into pieces. So this is basic coherent breathing, and some people are using applications of this.
Metronome or
I'm just counting on my fingers, or using the sound for the patient if the eyes of the patient are closed. Sometimes it's 15 minutes, and it will give immediate release of claustrophobia. We will work, me and this patient, we will work on the deeper issues. I was supposed to have a large presentation on the cancelled Society for Research in Psychotherapy Congress about this small protocol on claustrophobia. So the patients usually have a larger trauma lying beneath the claustrophobia. Yes, out of the last 12 patients, 8 of them had accident. 2 had a car accident, 1 was kidnapped by gangsters, and the other people were just, it was mine accidents. I am living in a coal mine area. So this is the dirtiest, the most polluted part of Europe here. So, and I'm teaching breathing in the dark world of Silesia.
Okay, I've been to the salt mines down in Poland.
That's beautiful. I love them.
I went to Auschwitz and I went to the salt mines. They were the 2 day trips I took from Krakow, but the salt mines were the nicest one.
Auschwitz is traumatic, but necessary.
Yeah. So what works then? Like, what is useful? This coherent breathing, that's helpful. I mean, you're not just a breath work. I mean, you've done a whole bunch of embodiment practices. This is authentic movement, body work, all sorts of things.
No, I can body work, certain Feldenkrais exercises. I use them for different reasons. I was taught different techniques at Somatoanalysis School in Strasbourg, and many of them were also introduced in Zurich. It was Minder's bodywork, and in Poland, where teachers are coming and going. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not totally addicted to any of techniques, but
you're not a fundamentalist, I'm hearing. Yeah.
Totally not. I was people tried to manipulate me in a different place.
Join our cult, Alicia. Join our cult. This is the one true way.
One true way, and try to be psychotherapist, but don't breathe, don't move, don't do anything. So no, and I am even a clinical psychologist, but that's.
How do you get away with this shit? Like, really, like, how do you get away with doing this in like a mainstream oncology ward? Like, aren't there people saying, "What the hell are you doing?"
They are saying, basically, at the beginning, you receive a lot of rejection. So luckily, I'm not a borderline personality. So I think
you've got a robust ego. You don't give a shit what people think of you. I tell you, in the position I'm in, that really helps as well. You have to have a certain disregard for the insults. Yeah.
Yes, that's this type, and I'm trying to be nice and sensitive to the team, because imagine traumatized nurses, overworked, totally tired doctors. They are very nice people, but they are trained in a certain way, and they have certain distrust for crazy psychologists.
Sure.
I am sometimes ashamed that I am a psychologist, because body worker, it's much more, breath worker, anything is much more.
It could be worse. You could be a coach or a yoga teacher. That would be much worse. Like,
I am so tired by stiff psychotherapy mainstream that coach doesn't sound so bad anymore.
Okay, interesting. In England, it's got a bit of a negative association just because.
Also in Poland, but I know a lot of nice business coaches who have.
Me too. I know one in Krakow, actually, my friend Pavel. But hello, Pavel, if you're out there, nice to see you. So yeah, but there's some resistance.
But getting back to the techniques. when I'm meeting people who have cancer, most of my patients, they don't have secure attachment style. Maybe this is Polish traumatized history, but people are not trusting, people are not open, and everybody knows better. So the patient thinks, my aunt, she was a school teacher, so I know the same amount of knowledge and everything as the psychologist who tries to talk to me. So I often propose them small things which will get them into a different place very, very, very fast. So when I change the pattern of breathing, the mood changes. This is the first thing. I am talking to the people about oxygenation, because when you have radiotherapy, your tumor and you as a whole, you must be oxygenated. So I teach people about body, about molecules, even if they are uneducated. I am talking about, you know, the keys with wings, like in Harry Potter movie, and they accept it. So we breathe. We are focused on the painful body parts, because you know, concentration without attachment gives you 30-40% of symptom release. People who have radiotherapy, they are burned, so it's a real pain. They are covered with blisters.
Right.
Yes, large operations. I work with the patients who have large reconstructions of whole face, who have no eyes, imagine, who have large tumors everywhere. So we need to focus on the painful part without attachment or pushing. So this is the part which gives immediate release. So sometimes it's difficult when you have alcoholics or people who are addicted in some other way. But I am happy to work with everyone who is breathing. Okay, that's
the criteria. They have to be breathing.
They have to be breathing. I didn't try afterwards.
It's difficult. It's difficult. And okay, so you try different techniques. You do, I imagine, quite simple things. You do something which gives them an experience. So rather than trying to convince them, it just gives them a state change, and they go, okay, well, I feel better now, right? So they're going to get some pain relief, some stress relief, and then it's like, okay, you've sort of sold it at that point, I imagine.
Yes, they can complete radiotherapy treatment. They can have chemotherapy without extensive vomiting, because part of vomiting is a conditioned reaction of our body. So it really works. Just we need to take the vagus nerve, look him in this little nasty eyes, and tell him, now I am in control and you breathe with me.
I'm the daddy now, vagus nerve. Yeah. And does it impact you? I mean, most people aren't used to being around so much hardship. You know, I've done some humanitarian work. I've been to war zones, so I've got some experience, but you know, most people aren't used to being around the kind of suffering that cancer causes. How is it for you, like on a daily basis, being around that?
Oh, luckily, as a therapist, I had a lot of personal therapy, and I have nice friends to share. But some things cannot be unseen.
Yeah.
So there were things that changed me forever. And I am not sure, is it a part of my wisdom and experience, or whether it's just trauma.
Well, you have this humor of someone that I've seen your humor before. I have a bit of it. I've seen it in concentration camp survivors. I've seen it in soldiers and firemen. And you don't see it in civilians very often. There's a certain way of, it's actually a kind of joy of sort of laughing at life and not taking it too seriously. And for me, I experience it as sort of feeling, but not getting too caught in the thing. And simultaneously knowing how bad life can be, but choosing to sort of smile and laugh. That's kind of my approach to it.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting. Is it something similar for you? It looks like I sort of felt like you're a bit of a kindred spirit in some ways when I saw you, you know, did the interview with Steve, and you know, Steve's doing his nice smiley jovial Australian thing, and you've got that slightly cutting, slightly biting, partly East European, partly I've seen some real shit, you know, you can't unsee. And yeah, I'm kind of curious about that personally as much as anything.
Okay. This is my basic character, you know. I went through a lot. But as a child, I decided that Christianity is totally not for me. So I wanted to be something else, and I decided to be Buddhist when I was 16, and I started to practice. So it's been a lot of years, and I believe I'm still this angry, impulsive person, but a different one. Yeah.
Buddhist training on top of that, yeah.
Yeah. Buddhist training is totally important, and probably I will be much more personal and sentimental. I'm not sentimental. Maybe this is this part that you see in me now. I'm not sentimental, and that helps me to help people in totally every situation.
Yes.
Yesterday, my patient who had a large brain tumor, he called me, I'm vomiting, I'm feeling bad, let's reschedule the session. And I asked him, did you finish your vomiting? He said, yes, so let's start the session. But he said, but I have vomited on my computer. So I said, oh, I'm so sorry. So let's reschedule it. and he was scared that I will reject him because he was vomiting. And honestly, that's nothing.
Right. There's something in when you've seen a lot of shit, people can pick up that you're not going to judge them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when I've talked to soldiers about their trauma, you know, and I tell them a couple of stories so they get that I may understand a little bit. And then there's a way in which they open up because they go, okay, you're not going to judge me that I've done some heavy shit, or that I'm vomiting, or that I look like crap, or my hair's fallen out, or whatever the particular thing is, right? People need to feel not judged, and they need to feel that you've seen enough dark stuff that it's not going to freak you out as much as anything. I think people are defending you, right? They're like, it's like, I don't want to freak out the therapist, and I don't want to freak out the trainer or the coach. And so you have to let them know it's not going to freak you out. And sometimes a joke helps. Sometimes being a bit of tough love as well, right? Being like, because it's like no one wants your pity. Is my experience is no matter how bad the situation is, the pity is what they want.
Pity is not helping at all.
Yeah.
But my patients generally feel that shitting your pants or vomiting or bleeding or I don't know, anything, shaking, I will accept everything. And this is what Stan Grof said, that the therapist must be ready for cathartic experience of the client and must be ready for everything so that everything could happen. So I have a large space for everything that could happen. Yeah, so people are telling me really dark things.
Because it's almost like I feel like clients sense if you can't handle it as a therapist, trainer, coach, whatever, if you can't handle it, they won't go there. And people have got a pretty good sense of that. Like, for example, I'm pretty good with anger. I'm pretty good at not being freaked out by anger. So people get angry around me. Whereas I don't think they would get angry around someone that couldn't handle that emotion, you know? Because they go, okay, this guy can handle that. They have an instinct for it. It's like the body has an instinct for that.
Yeah, sometimes saying you are being angry in a very weak way. Let's start yelling. I was trained also a bit in this spontaneous scream technique, but it's too violent for our times.
Much for that, yeah.
Yes, I was taught how psychotherapy as naked in a group, and it was very stupid and proved nothing, but still old experiences. Old body psychotherapy leaves the patient without naked and shitting their pants, and I am much more gentle after being exposed to all these toxic styles of work.
Right. I mean, interestingly, in Eastern Europe, because the sort of first wave hit later, generally, you can have people like you who have been experienced in both the sort of 70s approach, which was going on in England before I was born, right? And, maybe when I was a 10-year-old, it was still happening, but certainly not by the time I was a 20-year-old, it was kind of out of fashion, in the 90s. Whereas what we see in some of these European countries is this first wave comes later. And now you're also getting, what's that?
It was this first wave who came later, yes.
Right. So you got the first wave like 20 years after, but you're now, because of the internet, you're getting the modern wave at the same time, right? You're getting all the same speakers and CDs and podcasts that we get. So it's like, it's almost more condensed experience. You know what I mean? Like So it's like you've been through that 70s cathartic, screaming, throwing up in a bucket, getting naked, and going, okay, that's not so wise to do that all the time, and particularly with your client group. But now you're also seeing the modern movement, right? Like Wim Hof does stuff in Poland every year, and you're on the internet doing breath days with Dan Brule.
I'm very happy that I started Wim Hof methods 3 months ago, and I'm going to be an instructor, and I want to study this type of breathing for my patients. It's a great idea to introduce breathwork the way he is introducing breathwork, and his style, while I'm going through fundamentals course now, reminds me of old rebirthing sessions, because he's saying breathe into it, accept tingling. So it's a very nice thing for healthy, for the healthy. With the people who are sick, I always start very slow, very nice, For me, in a real body psychotherapy, not the 70s wave of abuse, we are working without scratching the resistance. We want to melt the resistance through breathing, through different experience. I believe it's more effective.
Okay. Well, I like the Wim Hof method myself. I was doing the Wim Hof breathing this morning, so I do 3 or 4 times a week. I find if I do it more than 4 times a week, I get a little bit hyperactive and crazy. So I found that's my sweet spot for ADHD boy. There's a different sweet spot for everybody else, but 4 times a week. Since I was also swimming in the sea yesterday at 9 o'clock in the evening as the sun was going down, to the amazement of some people around. It was nice. That was banned in England. We weren't allowed to swim in the sea, so I'm quite happy I'm allowed to swim in the sea again.
Wonderful.
The police coming
I like this part of Wim Hof, really.
I think the Polish mountains would be a bit colder, though. I've heard there's a pretty hardcore course in the Polish mountains.
Yes. The next year in a different mountains than usual, but it will be held in Poland. And now I think Wim Hof method may change lives of many individuals. So it's nice. I like his approach without ego, like he says, no ego, but we go.
Yeah, so he's like a fun guy.
Rainbow shitting,
My friend Tim works with him quite a lot and says he's a good guy. So this is Tim from the Netherlands, who's a trainer.
Yeah, we have a contact. Yeah, after the breathwork day, we are.
Well, I'm glad that maybe if you need to be hooked up with anyone else for the breathwork day, let me know. I like to connect different people and kind of build the network that way. And I think the internet's doing this wonderful thing now that everything's being put out there. Like I can talk to someone in Poland. We can someone is listening to this podcast in Kenya. Someone out. The next guest will be from Canada. This is like kind of wonderful modern world now where it's all. We don't have kind of communist governments banning bookshops and saying that you have to have stolen paper to print the book on anymore. Yeah. It's almost a different problem. There's almost too much out there now. That's the new problem. It's just you're drowning in it.
Yes. So, but still, variety is better than communism and fanatism. I would like to go back to results of my research on breathwork. So, I'm still working on publishing the full paper. It's a large effort, really, but the results are quite clear. The patients, I have a group of selected breast cancer patients. They were pretty much the same, and ladies were training with me in 2 groups. One group had normal contact, verbal session plus relaxation, and the other group had breath work with circular breathing of around 10-12 breaths per minute. So it's rebirthing breath work for 30 minutes a day, about a day, during intensive training part. And ladies who had breath work training, they after completing radiotherapy, 8 to 12 weeks later, they have a larger amount of natural killer cells in their blood, despite radiotherapy and chemotherapy, comparing to control group. And that shows the power of breath work. There was a research on pranayama teachers and yoga teachers. They had natural killer cells activity measured and alpha waves of their brain, and only during pranayama rhythmic hardcore breathing there was a change in natural killer cells activity. And during the 10th session of my breathwork group, I collected blood after 30 minutes Of course, it showed that there is a diminished level of carbon dioxide. Of course, partial oxygen pressure is a little lower, but there was a prolactin who went up. And cortisol. Prolactin, this is a hormone, prolactin.
It's the one that you have when you orgasm, is that right?
Yes, and this is the bliss and breastfeeding. During orgasm and during standard sex, did you see the research? Only standard sex, vaginal sex, give you the total prolactin release comparing to oral sex. Very interesting research.
Oh, really? I heard that oral sex and standard sex reduce depression in women as long as they're not contraception is not used. So you know, this is the depression cure that I sometimes recommend. But tell me the evidence base again, because I'm a pervert and I want to know. So what was it? Tell me the evidence again. So standard vaginal sex with or without protection?
I don't know if they
Either way.
I don't know. It's not my research, but I received it as a Valentine.
And so even without an orgasm, there's still a positive effect. This gives a very good excuse to us men.
It had to be an orgasm, and then they studied prolactin.
Okay, so if there's an orgasm, there's more of this. There's more of this hormone.
Yes, but during standard vaginal sex, so it was very funny observing. But I would like to summarize this thing with prolactin.
Yes, so, please.
There is one thing with natural killer cells. They are more active when there is prolactin, more prolactin, and they are less active when there is a lot of cortisol.
Yes.
So after 30 minutes of good breathwork session, it was session number 10, so ladies could really breathe. Yeah. Yes, this was shown that 10th session reduced cortisol and increased prolactin, and these two factors are increasing activity of natural killer cells in vivo and in vitro. This was research of someone else. And after all, I have a small analysis. It's not still published, you know, I'm struggling a bit, but I'm writing. I promise I will publish it. The higher blood pH went up during the last session. So the heavier the breathing was, yes? It was related to the increase in number of natural killer cells. So good breathing.
System cells that kill cancer cells and yes. HIV patients.
Natural killer cells are basically killing cancer cells.
They're like your natural bodyguards, right? They run around your body beating the shit out of cancer and diseases.
And certain viruses also. So when you have cancer, it's good to raise your pH blood using breathing, rhythmic breathing to release prolactin. Probably it's good to have sex, I think. And you have to reduce your cortisol. So all the breathing techniques and anything that could lead to such result will help your immunity. So this is the idea from analyzing about 450 data I have in my database.
Great. So it's interesting that a lot of these things people have guessed have worked. So there's an evidence base that's rising, and I think breath work is going to be one of the embodiment techniques that's going to be easiest to gather evidence on, because it's fairly easy to standardize a technique. So it's very difficult to standardize a yoga class, right? Because different teachers do it in different ways. You know, dance class, forget it. You know, meditation is kind of difficult, but breath work's like, okay, this many breaths, this is the rhythm. You can standardize that pretty easily. And the other thing is, it's chemically impactful and hormonally impactful. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I use a blood oximeter rating. I use HRV, heart rate variability monitor on my earlobe, and I use a brainwave monitor from Muse. So I have these 3 electronic things tied to me, right? And I do my breath work. And within 5 or 10 minutes, they're all different. And it's not subtly different. It's like my blood oxygenation significantly changed. My heart rate has gone, you know, I do the Wim Hoff, and with the breath hold, my heart rate goes from a resting pulse rate of about 80, 85, it's relatively high resting, to about 50 to 55. That's not a small change. And it's just, it's very obvious that these changes, and that's just me with my little home science kit, you know. So I'm going, okay, anyone that's got real equipment is definitely going to be able to see changes. It seems like breath work is definitely impactful in a very short space of time.
Definitely. I would like to buy the same kit you have to measure my own experiments.
Do you want us to send it to you as a thank you for coming part of the day conference? We'll send it to you as a present. What do you want? You want the Muse or the oximeter or the HRV one?
HRV.
I'll get that sent to you. Send me your address afterwards on email. I'll get you sent one. Okay, that's my present to you.
Thanks a lot.
So.
Yeah, I love experiments. My patients HRV. This is another important thing. Cancer patient who has high HRV will live longer.
Okay.
Even if the disease is advanced or metastatic. So I really train my patients in coherent breathing, and if they are ready to have large insights or really work deeply, so I do rebirthing breathwork style. I mean 10 to 12 cycles. It depends on the body. So there are different styles we might use in breathwork to help people, but HRV changes pretty fast, and many of my patients are changing the doses of hypertension drugs. Research published in Lancet shown that coherent breathing will reduce hypertension 10 points from the hypertension.
Yeah, it's significant, and a lot of people know about heart rate variability. Can you say just briefly what the concept means, right? Is it the difference? It's a little bit subtle. Are you able to define it? Because I always forget the exact definition.
There are two things which were coming together, but now scientists are saying there are two separate things, like respiratory sinus arrhythmia. When I breathe in and I breathe out, my heart rate changes, of course, yeah? And this is related directly to heart rate variability. So the bigger the change is in heart rate on inhale and exhale, the stronger and healthier the individual is. So the bigger the change is, it's better. If you have a flat RV, that means you are totally exhausted and your vagus nerve is doing nothing.
How do we increase this variability? Because it seems to be a pretty robust measure of like longevity and health, not just in cancer patients, but like you could almost use it if you were running an insurance company. If I ran an insurance company, I'd make you tell me your HRV before I gave you a fucking quote, Like,
it's a great idea. I hope they are listening.
You hope they are. They aren't. We didn't say that. We'll go back. So like it's because it's such a robust measure that's been really shown. I know the HeartMath people are really into it. I'm not sure about their research, if it's scientific or not. I'd love to get your opinion on that.
More or less, it's scientific. They had nice experiments. They were asking someone very pissed off into laboratory, and the other one behind the wall reacted very strongly without even knowing. So they have a bunch of nice research.
Okay, it's worth a look, the HeartMath stuff, yeah? I think I met someone from their organization who was kind of grumpy and unpleasant. And after that, I just sort of discounted it, but maybe he just hadn't had lunch or something that day.
Well, so I was very amazed by a lecture of Rollin McCratey, the founder, during the Breathwork Summit of the Shift Network we had. I was invited as a little hermit from Poland. I am quite new in the social media. I went out of my cave due to this Shift Network thing.
Well, I'm glad we've got you early, because I think you're going to be a megastar. And I can see East Europe generally rising, because I remember there was a time when there was lots of young people like Hungary coming from East Europe and learning a lot. And now that time they've matured those people into practitioners now. And I think everyone's sort of a bit tired of the baby boomer American vibe. And there needs to be different attitudes, whether it's my British sarcasm or the Germans doing their thing, or, the Poles, different people are like hungry for like different flavors around the work. And certainly the scientific stuff, which, was done with mindfulness, I think needs to move into other areas of embodiment. I'm often frustrated there isn't more studies on this. We had Helen Payne on, who's a researcher from the UK. We've got the dance doctor, Dr. Peter Lover, who's done some research on dance, coming to the Embodiment Conference. But you know, like there's all these centering techniques, for example, that say they reduce fight-flight response, but it'd be so easy to set an experiment up to test them. You know, I'm not an academic, so that's not my gift, but it's like, I'd love to have any PhD students out there who want good ideas for studies and give you like 10 just now in terms of like testing different techniques. Like why is there such a weak link between?
It's so difficult. You will not get a grant for this.
Yeah. Why?
No, I will never get a grant. I can't. I will. I'm not. I don't believe it. Especially in Polish conditions. No one is interested.
Sponsoring this. How much money would I have to put up to start sponsoring PhD students to do this work?
I'm not sure. I'm not really sure because I did my PhD in a hospital, so I'm not at the university. Yeah.
I think I want to sponsor it because I can raise money through the conference and we could get like a grant, you know, to a few researchers. And
oh, that's very nice. Team suggested we should do research together, for example.
Let's talk again about that. And there's a few other people that might be interested, but you know, for me, it just feels like there's a lack of evidence base. There's not many studies on breath work or, you know, all these other things you mentioned, bodywork and authentic movement. And I mean, Helen Payne does stuff with that, but there's not much out there. And I feel like I've probably got a pretty good network now to sponsor some of it, and we could do a crowdfunding. So, you know, I could put in a few thousand and then crowdfund the rest, kind of thing, you know. So
I hope we'll grow as a team. All this Embodiment Conference, it amazed me. I saw your advertisement just after I have launched my Facebook page, and I thought, yes, I like it.
Well, it's growing. You know, I think we're on about 110,000 signups, and we're aiming for 1 million people. And you know, it's really growing. The one-day event you were part of was just a sort of small, spontaneous thing for us. So let's stay in touch. You'll be at the conference. Where do people find you then? Because I Googled you, and I did come up with a Facebook. Like, what's the best place?
I'm on LinkedIn. And I don't have a nice website now in English. You know, I always have so many patients and trainees and doctors, but I was in my cave and I was hiding a little bit not to receive too much hate, because I still receive a lot of hate and rejection during all these years.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It does seem to come with exposure, huh?
Yes, so that's why I was careful with exposure, but still, I am on Facebook and I can be easily contacted. Everyone can write me on alicia@heyda@gmail.com, and I am on LinkedIn. You know, I have a nice profile on LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn. So you want to spell your name, because that way, if people want to Google you, they can find you. So let me spell
my name, Heyda.
Okay, and your first name is spelled ALIC for Charlie, J for Julia, A for Alpha. Yeah.
Yeah. You will find me. Yes, my look is quite characteristic. You will not mistake me.
There's a picture of you from an older picture, I would say, from the Amiga network that I'm finding there. And cool. So closing thoughts here. We've got a little bit of time. Closing thoughts. So a few questions. What would you like everyone to know about breathwork?
I would like everyone to know that they can use this tool and remain free from any kind of mental confinement without joining any sect, without converting into any religion. You can regulate your mental state or reach higher peak states using different rhythms and cooperating or forcing a bit your vagus nerve. So you are free to go. Every mammal can do this. Yeah.
Wonderful. And what would you say for the sort of scientists out there, the more sort of skeptical medical types maybe out there?
Certain breathwork techniques are already researched, and they are researched quite well. Immunity is not very well researched, but it's very promising. As a practical person, I know that the patients sometimes would prefer cutting off half of their brain instead of starting any kind of mind-body intervention. You must remember that, okay? But for these people who, you know, have a little, they are opened, or let's say they have kind of good karma, or they are willing to change, this is the great way to start with any kind of embodiment. and without necessity to have a lotus posture. For example, I am unable to do lotus posture despite my...
Oh, you disappoint me. You disappoint me. You know, people don't realize the bar is actually relatively low, isn't it? You don't have to be flexible or do, you know, these kind of crazy chant and mansion. And it's getting easier as well. Like, people are getting more open-minded. I think you'll see your work get easier and easier in terms of people being open to it. You know, as people's sons and daughters come back from traveling in India or working in England and doing yoga in America or whatever, it's going to get easier and easier in places like Poland. You know, I went to a really good vegetarian restaurant in Krakow, and I was just, because my wife's vegetarian, and I was amazed. You know, I was like, this is a really good, it's called Krakatoa.
Where did you go?
Krakatoa, I think it's called, if I remember it rightly. It's very sushi place, but they do a lot of vegetarian type
sushi.
Sushi.
That's my favorite restaurant in Krakow at Krupnicza Street. I know where you've been.
It's really very good.
I love it. Totally.
It's really very good. Yeah. So I'm not a vegetarian, but my wife is. So I have to go to very good vegetarian restaurants if I'm going to be happy. If it's her birthday or something, you know. So I always take it to the really good ones. And
luckily it was Krakow, not Silesia. Here we have black coal and meat.
Black coal and meat and potatoes. That's how it is. But you know what? That pragmatism is making, I would say, it's just a huge gift in that it's making you be super practical, right? It's like Paul Linden is one of my teachers who's in Ohio, and in Ohio he doesn't get away with what they get away with in Northern California, right? Ooh. And what that means is you have to be practical. So it's like that sort of practical, maybe even cynical kind of vibe is actually meaning you're doing stuff that people in California or Berlin are never going to fucking do. They're never going to do it because they don't have to do it. And I think that's a really, really big gift.
Well, maybe they were too comfortable in their life, so they can easily think about love, inhaling love, you know, breathing down rainbows.
I was in Northern California just as COVID was hitting, and the temperature in Northern California is basically like a Polish spring all year round. And they don't have the hot ass summers you have. They don't have the cold ass winters. No. They don't have the communist history, you know. And I was like, well, of course you're comfortable. You're comfortable here. And comfort doesn't breed innovation. Suffering does. Difficulty does, you know. So comfort's nice, and we all want to be comfortable. But ultimately, to wish for a comfortable life is a curse, you know.
It's a curse, like Wim Hoff suggested. There is a famous writer from Poland. His name was Chłasko, and he said, look at the peaceful country as the Switzerland, 300 years of peace, and what they have invented, a cuckoo clock and cheese.
No, the Swiss Army knife. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we have quite a lot of Swiss listeners, and they do tend to be very good customers. So for Switzerland, I'm sorry, I do like your cheese, okay, if you're out there.
Okay, I like your cuckoo clocks. It was just a small...
Geneva's gorgeous. I love teaching in Geneva. It's such a nice place to teach. Okay, and do you closing message for the hippies as well? We should do last one. Closing message for the hippies.
For the hippies, I accept every unicorn if it's a real experience. And hippies and crazy breathwork teachers taught me everything what I should know about practical breathwork. And they were very helpful, and really, I'm happy that I met them, and they were so different from stiff psychotherapists or clinical psychologists I have met later. So I am thankful. I am thankful, even if you tell me to breathe love. Even
you've got a generous heart. You've got a generous heart. So, dziękuję bardzo. This has been a real pleasure. And a total delight. I'm guessing I'll see more of you. Don't be a stranger. You feel free to email me or Facebook message me anytime, okay? Cool. Anything to close? Should we leave it there?
Sorry?
Anything you want to say to close? We've got 1 minute if you want it.
Thank you so much. I am happy that you invited me, really. And I'm getting out of my 20 years retreat with cancer people and difficult, cruel people and everything you could meet. So new way, new start. So I'm happy to be here with you. And I'm open to any cooperation.